Welcome to the Cook Burbank Creative Center today. We have the two authors here of the Cine Lens Manual, Jay Holben and Christopher Probst, ASC. I'm really delighted to have you guys here. So let's start talking about how did this book come about?
Well, in the most simple way, it came from noticing a lack of accurate technical information and historical information in the marketplace. When Chris and I really started to do a deep dive in optics, we were very frustrated at the lack of information and how far we had to dig to find things. I, having done a couple of books, kind of noticed that, okay, maybe this would be the next hole to fill in the educational market, is something specifically on cine optics. Yeah. And we both dove into learning about optics about the same time.
Yeah, it was pretty much with sort of the transition in cinematography with sort of the mass adoption of digital that marked my kind of foray into exploring optics more, because kind of to oversimplify things, in the 2000s, I think if you were an Arri user, you may use the latest Arri product if you use Master Primes or Ultra Primes, or if you're a big Panavision guy, you grab Primos and stuff. And it wasn't necessarily about the lenses. Maybe there's a conversation about should we shoot anamorphic or should we shoot spherical, but it was more like, oh, what film stocks? Let's test the film stocks. Let's explore these different lab processes we can do to influence the image. And the lenses were somewhat of an afterthought, even so much so when we were researching the book and going through the entire collection of the ASC, American Cinematographer issues, all the way back to 1919, and trying to find articles where they mention even the lenses, not even just going into talking extensively about how they use them. Very little information historically talked about lenses in films. They talked a lot about the lighting, they talked a lot about the film stock and all that, but very little mention of lenses. So with digital, though, with sort of democratizing the field, where we started to whittle down initially almost to two digital stocks. We had Arri or Red, largely, and Sony kind of had a little bit of stumbling trying to find a footing, but now with the Venice and Venice 2, they've really also stepped up as a really viable platform. But then, so we're all relegated to basically two film stocks and no special lab processes to really manipulate it. And you can't do the same things with digital exposure you could do with a film emulsion, with underexposing or overexposing and printing down, or silver retention and all these different things. So we've lost this whole element of control and manipulation that you could do with the image. So then you have this homogenized field to start with, and lenses became really noticeable in that. Like, wow, I'm really starting to see the nuances of each lens and how it can imbue a certain quality. And so that exploration was kind of the impetus to say, like, well, I want to know more, and sort of figuring out what lenses I was attracted to, and exploring that coincided with Jay and I both teaching some courses, and simultaneously in the students, there was a hunger for, like, I want to know more about optics. And so it was like, well, can we do a course on this? And we're both cinematographers, we both teach, and we've written for the magazine for 20 years each. Sure, we can talk about optics, and we realized we didn't know anything.
The spirit of the way that Chris and I have worked together for 3 decades is to share an idea, and then the other takes that idea and adds to it and manipulates and gives it back, and then add and manipulate, and we ping pong these things back and forth. And that's the way that we worked that outline initially. I sent him an outline of, this is what I think the book would look like, table of contents, and he made a bunch of notes and a bunch of changes and sent it back, and then that inspired me to make a bunch of changes and send it back, and I don't know, we did 6 versions in a day. And that's the same thing that happened with the book. So I initially thought that this book would be really the first 3 chapters and maybe the last 2. An introduction into optics, an introduction into optical design, maybe a little bit into touching on history, and then sort of how to deal with lenses. And the project of the technical information became a separate project for us, a database, the comprehensive Cine Lens database. But then Chris came in and started, well, one of the things was he wanted to be able to look at an optical design and read it like a book. And so that became a challenge that he threw down for both of us. We need to understand and explain optical design enough so that you can look at a design schematic and know immediately, oh, look, it's a double Gauss, it's a planar design, it's a quick triplet design, this is the evolution of it. Oh, look, here's a field flattener in here, and this is what they're doing, and to be able to read it.
We're not just limited basically to something that's ultra pristine and trying to harness contrast perfectly. It's like we're offered now a whole range of options, and that's good because, you know, having more different nuances that we can capitalize on is important, and having an acknowledgement of where we kind of came from with optics, and sort of identifying what properties are interesting and how we can formulate and influence our images is great.